Hello and welcome to Catholic Parents Online, a podcast where we share tips and resources on Catholic parenting. This is brought to you by the Theology of the Body parenting team of the Apostolate for Catholic Truth. Presented with the lens of the theology of the body, we will see how we can be a sincere gift of ourselves to our kids in ways that will help them find true happiness and flourish in accordance with God's wonderful plan for each and every one of them. My name is John Hui, and I'm your host for this podcast. And today, we are very blessed to have with us a gentleman who will be sharing his story about his journey from addiction to pornography to freedom in Christ. He has been really, truly courageous in agreeing to do this interview, and his main motivation being a desire to help us Catholic parents be more aware of the dangers that our children are exposed to and share with us how we can protect them. And if any of them, perhaps even any of us, are ensnared in this area of pornography, how we can break free from it. For obvious reasons, and to protect the privacy of his family and children, we will not be using his real name, but instead a pseudonym. And we both agreed on the name Augustine, after Saint Augustine, with whom many of us would identify, right? Yes, that same Saint Augustine who once famously said and prayed, "Lord, give me chastity, but not yet." Hello, Augustine, and welcome to this podcast.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
I should thank you, Augustine. Yeah. Now, we had some conversations before this recording, and I must say I was truly struck by your honesty and subsequently your determination and your faith, So perhaps to start off this conversation, would you like to share with us a little about your childhood, growing up years?
Sure. Wow, where do I start? Well, I belong to a Catholic family, and I have 3 siblings, and I think in the eyes of society, one would often say that our family came across as a normal Catholic family. We were, we always would go for a Sunday Mass, and I would say a very normal family, happy-going family. I think obviously every family has their ups and downs, and with regard to my childhood, I would say one important area was my dad. He was working overseas, I think, for a good 6 years, probably when I was 9. It was my parents decided that, he would be working overseas and help to bring in money for the family. So I think, there was that time where I actually missed my dad a lot, and my mom had to take on a lot of responsibilities in the house, where she was taking on 2 different roles, both as a father and a mother. And other than that, I think, there were a lot of, squabbles. I think my parents were amazing raising us up, but I think they were not, really good in their own relationships. And definitely that was quite traumatizing for me as a child. Obviously now, over time, the relationship has grown, but as a child, I think me and my siblings, we had to see that on a very regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, all of our families have our problems, right? And I can understand your family had its own issues as well. Perhaps would you like to share with us when you were introduced to pornography, and how did that happen?
I think I definitely would. It started off at a very, very young age. I don't exactly know the details, but I think it was around my close circle. I think my elder brother probably had, who's 4 years older to me, was already exposed to it, and he happened to just expose it to me as well. And that is one faint memory. It was, I remember that was my first experience there, but I think it only got aggravated a couple of years later, and I don't recall how, but I think it was around just my friends, my close circle again, but in school. So yeah, maybe when I was probably 13 years old. So I would say, yeah, it was mainly exposure by an external party, but also curiosity that actually led me to pornography, led me to my first exposure to pornography.
I see. And after your exposure, how did you more or less like get, in a sense, hooked onto it and felt the curiosity to continue to go on into this practice of into viewing pornography? Perhaps maybe what were the triggering factors that made you go into it?
It's that age, right? I mean, it's puberty, and your body is going through a lot of changes biologically, and I personally thought, and for me, it was just that age where I found my peers doing it, and I'll be honest with you, like, the woman's body is very, very powerful. Like, I mean, God has designed magnificently the woman's body. So when left unprotected, yeah, you just get hooked onto it, especially if there's little guidance. And it was the norm, at least for me, also growing up. Like, you just had to do it because your friends were doing it, and sooner or later you just didn't need company to do it because you just got hooked onto it very easily. And one picture was not enough. It became a collection of pictures. Then over time it was videos, and then the different types of videos. And it was just an unending cycle. You just wanted the next best thing. And the more you consumed it, it was never enough. So, that it's a very slippery slope once you get exposed to pornography. When left unsupported by any other factor or lack of guidance, you can just fall into addiction very easily. And that's precisely what happened to me.
Right. Were there some things that happened in your life that may have made you so-called, just triggered into viewing? For example, were there sometimes events in your life like stress events, or when you felt lonely, or when you felt rejected and things like that, that made you...
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. It was definitely a big... I mean, you always found so many reasons for pornography. Pornography was that place where, you could just hide into. It was that place where you could just run away from all the problems in your life. And for me, while growing up, I think the biggest problem in my life was, I think my environment. So me being far away from my dad, and also, the financial issues in my house, my parents squabbling, those were internal, those were issues that we're having in my family. When you look into when you are going through a lot in your own life, you tend to, your first resort is to go to your family, right? Because that's the place where you spend most of your time, and that's where, you're nurtured and you're loved. But once you don't find love, or you don't see love, because I felt like maybe I was taken care of very well by my parents, but I felt like, I never saw them. I never saw the image of love in their relationship. And as a child, you're always traumatized, saying, oh my gosh, will my parents get separated? It's those thoughts that never should be occurring on a child's mind. But it does happen when parents squabble and they fight. And these were just ongoing issues in the house, there were so many triggers. And yeah, I think that was a major component. Mm-hmm. You just want to run away, and you run away to pornography because it's so easy, so accessible. There were also other issues in the external environment, like, I don't know, like in the place where I was living. there was a brief period where I was also overseas and I wasn't very comfortable with the environment outside. I was a minority there, and there was definitely a big culture shock. And fear was one good reason why I wanted to just run away to pornography. It was like a safe haven. You just forget about the world and just dive into it for an hour. And yeah, no questions asked. You don't need to share your feelings. It's just an easy fix. It was definitely an escape. Yeah, it was not like it was an escape, man. And it was a good escape when you're there at the moment. It's just the right thing, because once you're done, once you're done watching, once you're done with masturbation, then life feels a little better for a very few minutes,
Right.
and then
It was like an
it's gloomy
escape kind of
again.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. And when did you, in a way, realize that it was a problem? How did you realize it was a problem? Yeah.
That's a good question. I think quite soon. I don't exactly remember how old I was, but I always questioned, why, in my opinion, something so stress relieving was at the same time so empty as well. I mean, it didn't take me too long to realize that actually I was using, I mean, now I can say, right, I was using it to escape, but when I started, it was, I didn't see it that way. I mean, I essentially thought it was, I'm a guy, and you will roam around with a lot of people who will just say that, it's good for you. As a man, this is a part of your masculinity journey, that you have to be indulged into pornography. But over time, you'll realize, and I think anyone who has this issue with porn addiction would know, that it's all a lie. These are just symptoms to a greater problem. So all the issues that I mentioned internally in my own house and externally, those were problems that probably I did not know how to deal with, and I just would use this as an escape. And then I realized, okay, maybe it was time for me to work on my problems. And then I didn't realize that actually, then I started questioning, a lot of questions came into my mind with regard to pornography, because I realized that I think the thing that really caught my attention was my lack of freedom. I felt like I was enslaved to pornography. You're doing it, and you're doing it so often, you don't realize that you are an addict. It's only when you try to stop, then you realize, oh my gosh, this is the free will is one thing in your existence that no one can rob away from you. It's so integral to your being, and yet I felt my own will was enslaved, because to pornography, I couldn't let go, and that really alarmed me, because I couldn't bear the idea of being enslaved to something, and I tried to let go, but it just became very, very difficult over time.
So if I hear you correctly, what you said is that the emptiness that you felt within, and also the fact that you found yourself unable to break free from it, and you found yourself so compulsively into it that you couldn't, in a sense, be free to do what you knew you should do or wanted to do. Am I right to say that?
Exactly. I would say that was the starting point. Of course, there were many other reasons as to why later on I wanted to let go, but yes, I remember these were like this was one big factor, like the free will, being enslaved to this, that really had a very profound impact on my view on pornography.
Right. So what motivated you subsequently then to want to quit pornography after you realized that it was a problem and that it was really causing you a lot of pain rather than freedom, so to speak?
over time, when you become addicted to pornography, you'll realize how meaningless it is, how empty it is. Each time you act out, there's this void in your heart that is so uh, visible, and it just brings you down. And I and I and Lord knows, like I really have been in that position many times, almost every day for that matter. And I really was determined to find out more about pornography. You know, the thing about pornography is, especially with addiction, at least for me, is because there's a certain portion in your mind that acts as a good lawyer. So you try to find certain ways to negotiate. Okay, maybe I cut down, or maybe there's certain aspects to pornography that I can watch, or it's okay if I do it a certain way, if I watch certain types of content. You'll I realized that there was this voice in my head that was a very good lawyer. That's how I actually used to tell myself. But then sooner or later, I still felt empty. I just realized it was all just many excuses I had made to just continue watching pornography. But then I realized, okay, I am either 100% with it or 100% against it. And this is what I would advise everyone who is addicted. You need to, first be very firm in your mind. Either you're with it or against it. And then I'm against it. Then I realized, okay, I'm against it, but let me stop. The second step is, okay, can you stop? And you can try stopping, but then you can't. And I realized, okay, I really need to do something more. I realized my relationships were getting impacted because I began, in this time, I started reading a lot because I was in the phase of quitting pornography. So I took active, I took initiatives to actually find out more about the industry, find out some more about, the situation I was in, not just about the industry, but the addiction that I was in. And I realized, like, the more I read, the more I had more reasons to actually quit the industry. And hence I became very determined to actually quit it for good. There were also like some books that actually really helped me a lot to make that decision. It so happened that I was actually I recently started dating, and for me it was a very big thing because I never believed in the idea of love. I never saw it in my own family, so I just was against the idea of dating because I couldn't bear the thought of hurting another human being. So, and why date, right? When you have all the pleasures of the world in your computer screen, why even date? But for some reason, the Lord thought it was fit for me to start dating, and I remember my then fiance, no, sorry, my then girlfriend. She was moving out from her apartment. She was going to study abroad, and we were just clearing out some books inside a room, and I came across this book. It's called Love and Responsibility by Kyle Wojtyla. And she was about to take it and give it to some friend, and I said, hey, it sounds like an interesting topic, and I like reading. Why not just give it a shot? And that book, honestly, John, that book brought me to tears. I must say that I got really depressed after reading the book. but in a way it was a good kind of depression. I don't know how to describe it, but essentially I realized a lot about myself. I mean, it was not just, I can go on talking about the industry and stuff like that, right? But over there I realized, me, Augustine, I was created for love. and I was created out of love, and I was created to love. The only relationship that is proper and adequate, in the words of Karl Wojtyła, is love, and anything in between is just an obstacle to love. And anything that prevents that love is just a big obstacle. And I realized that, when I would watch pornography, I questioned my relationship, right, to the women that I was watching. I neither knew their names. I mean, of course, their stage names we all know, but in some cases, I didn't even know their stage names. I didn't really care about them. For me, my relation to them was just a means to an end. And that end was pleasure. And not just pleasure, maximization of pleasure. Huge obstacle in my natural relationship that I was created for. And I fell in, I don't know, sometimes it's at the right moment, the right words, they really pierce your heart. And for me, those words just pierce my heart. I started questioning my relationship to women in general. And I realized this is not this was this was it. I was like, no, I can't. I just can't go forward. I even questioned my own relationship with my girlfriend. I said, maybe I should end it because I'm a wreck. I am a wreck. I've been living in this lie. And academically speaking, I'm an high achiever. So I have been a very good student. I've been a very good son in the world. In the world, I would seem like a very perfect person, but I realized I was so flawed internally. And something so fundamental to my own creation was something so fundamental to my creation was also lacking in my practice, right? And yeah, John, so these were the reasons why I think that book was, I would really, encourage anyone who's addicted as well to just read that book and maybe question your relationships with the women you watch.
Yeah, that book is heavy reading. I'm very impressed by the fact that you went through it, because I'm still struggling with it. It's you did a great job with that. Yeah, so I think perhaps yes, I think that many people have actually voiced this, that the teachings, the works of Karl Wojtyła, Pope St. John Paul II, namely in the theology of the body and love and responsibility, have really helped them recover their sense of who they were, what they were made for, and very importantly, in a sense, how they were to really live out that life, which is in love, for love to love, right? In order to really find true happiness and fulfillment in their lives. Yeah. So I think it's such a beautiful blessing that all of us have from St. John Paul II. Yeah. So having shared so beautifully about your conversion, so to speak, right, the part that really made you want to change, would you like to share with us perhaps how you, in a way, overcame it, the steps you took to overcome this addiction?
I would say it wasn't very easy. And I would say that I am still on the road to recovery. This is what we usually tell ourselves every day when we wake up in the morning. At least I do that. I wake up reminding myself that I'm still an addict. I think for me, again, I did take many steps, and I would say that there was no particular order as to which action really helped me the most. I think it was just a long journey of just persisting to allow God to work His magic, I guess, so to speak. I would say at the start, when I did want to stop this addiction, I did rely a lot on myself to end it. And I think that was a mistake that I had taken because, again, like I mentioned earlier, right? I was a high achiever. I was quite independent as well. There was a brief period in my time where I was also living by myself. So I really thought that, I had everything. I was armed to actually take care of this addiction myself. And the Lord did really humbled me during that time because no matter what I did, it was never enough to bring an end to the addiction. And I realized, and I foolishly was on that stage for a very, very long time. So for me, those steps, if I have to really write them down, I really have to mention it here. It was, listening to a podcast about pornography, about the vices of pornography, or um, going to church regularly, going for confessions. This is all really good. And I would say that really helped me to open my eyes, but I don't think it was adequate. And I realized that I was still falling, but what I should have done and what I did do eventually was actually reach out to people and ask for help. And this was a very big step because then my ego was involved, right? Then you're exposing oneself to the others. And I think the first thing the first person who I exposed this to was actually my girlfriend then. Because, the book that I was reading, Carl Wojtyła, it really opened my eyes. It was also very disturbing. My girlfriend knew that there was something that was changed in me and I was really very, very down, and I had to bring this to her. And I'm very glad I did it because I realized, because the thoughts that had come to me back then is that, how, Lord, I'm not worthy of your love. I'm a mess. I have made a mockery of everything beautiful that you have created. And but when I mentioned this to my girlfriend, then she was so accepting of me, and I realized, wow, if she is, imagine how great my God is, who created her, right? And if she can love me in spite of my flaws, then he can too. So then she also started helping me in my journey. I came across, and that encouraged me to actually talk openly about it to my very close friends as well. And I realized that we had some amazing conversations. Of course, they had their own point of views, and I couldn't change their hearts. And I don't think that was the whole point of exposing this to my friends. It was just sharing the situation that I was in and sharing my thoughts. And I think that really also helped. I became more confident, and I realized, like me, I mean, I wasn't alone. I realized my friends also were in the same, were also suffering in that way. And that's what the devil tells you when you are fighting alone. The devil tells you that, hey, you are the only flawed person, and you are, you are not worthy of God's love, and you are a joke. But when you talk to people, you realize, wow, you're not alone. And you have to be careful, of course, to who you are talking to. And that encouraged me then also then to go. And it was very difficult. I mean, I'm probably, it's coming across as very easy and straightforward, but these conversations were very, very difficult. It would almost shake me, right? Because again, with my ego, I was really, really humbled. And then I started talking about it more closely, also to a priest. Yeah. And he was helping me in my journey as well. It was not just a mere confession. I would go and visit him, and I think that really also helped me. Other than that, I also had joined a group. It's called SA, Sexaholic Anonymous. And just hearing others who were also in the same journey was also quite comforting, knowing that you are not alone. and amazing people, all of them, but we're just sick, right? And of course, I never stopped reading. So I continued reading for, like you said, Love and Responsibility was difficult to digest. For me, TOB was a bit difficult to digest. I'm still in the process of digesting it. But I think, God will reveal his mysteries to us in due time. Another thing that actually, I grew up in a very, I don't know what's the word, in a very macho, a very manly kind of an environment where we were encouraged not to share feelings. And sharing feelings became was very, very difficult for me. If a person is suffering, if I was suffering, I did not have the habit of sharing my emotions with anyone. And hence, I don't know who it was that encouraged me to start journaling, but I was fighting with this idea for a very long time. I said, no, you will not find me journal, because that's not what men do. I don't know who put this lie in my head. But then I eventually started journaling, and I realized, wow, there was a whole different area there was a whole different area of my side that I wasn't aware of myself, and that was only revealed to me when I started journaling. I could, contain my thoughts. I could think, and I think, it was just a combination of these different things. Again, like I said, it's not in this order, but it's just these combination of different tools that helped me in my journey. And of course, I always tried to pray. For me, the prayer that was very close to me was the Our Father prayer. Whenever I felt tempted, I would always just say this in my heart, and I just found comfort in these words.
Yeah. I remember you mentioning just now that one of the motivating factors for you in wanting to quit pornography was when you found out the reality of what pornography did to the actors and actresses in those videos and so on, right? And because a lot of people actually claim that pornography is actually a harmless activity. After all, no one is hurt in the process, and it is consensual, since the actors and actresses involved in these videos consented, in a sense, to being filmed that way. What do you say to that? Any comments based on what you mentioned just now?
I think, and this is just based on what I know, actually, it's a research, and if anyone puts their head into it and actually do a lot of digging, they'll understand there are many vices to pornography. No one's childhood dream is to become a porn star. You really have to imagine the harrowing experiences that these people have to go through to make a decision to participate in pornography and to degrade their bodies in front of the whole world. Most of them, about consent, most of them are very are forced into it, and those who aren't are coerced or manipulated to sign contracts that actually has no benefit to them. In a way, we the consumers are feeding off their vulnerabilities. We are exploiting them. A lot of these porn stars that I also used to watch on a regular basis, you'd be surprised, but over time I realized that some of those porn stars actually passed away. And I really didn't care sometimes. I just watch. When we watch pornography, we keep the human side of the woman just outside, and we treat them worse as an animal. We don't really care about what they had to do, or the we don't care about their life, the amount of harrowing events that led to this video that we are watching, what they are actually going through the video, because whatever they are depicting in the video is also a lie. It comes across as something that they enjoy, but it's not true. Sex is not that's very unnatural. Sex is not like that. Sex is more beautiful. There is no talking involved because, of course, there is no maximization of pleasure involved in talking, right? But when you have sex in the natural way, of course, there's a dialogue. It's beautiful. Everything about sex is just about pornography is just maximization of pleasure. And unfortunately, a lot of these porn stars, they are victims. And if you see this, there's actually a high fatality rate. A lot of porn stars, they die either because of STDs, they die either because of physical abuse, and mostly because of suicide. There's a social death. No one would. There are millions of people watching them on a daily basis, but no one would want to go out with them. No one wants to be seen with them. This is how we're treating porn stars. So I think it's just a big lie. And no matter how much porn we consume, that is never enough. We always want. We just want the next big thing. We want them to do more horrendous acts that is so unnatural. There is definitely something wrong then, right?
So yeah, it would seem that is quite the case. I think it seems quite consistent with the book I had read, the myth about pornography by Matt Fradd, and I think it seems what you said is really quite consistent with what I read in that book as well. Now, with regards to, let's say, for people out there who are in a sense addicted to pornography or definitely troubled by pornography and really want to quit it, but they have problem doing so, would you have any advice to them and how they can actually go about seeking freedom from pornography?
Yes, I think I think firstly you need to, again, you need to shut the lawyer in your head firstly. All right. So I think you need to start off by saying, do you really want to quit? And there's no like 80% quitting or 50% quitting, which is often the case. People who usually want to quit, they tone it down, or they say, okay, we'll just stick to this. We won't watch certain videos. There is no middle ground. You're either 100% with it or 100% against it. And I think it starts from there. Well, I think the second thing based on my experience, is just to surrender it to God. Can't really stress this enough, but alone you will never be able to destroy this addiction. You have to give yourself completely to God, because you see, recovery does not happen overnight. There are good chances that you will give in. No matter, you realize that, wow, you've done really good first day, second day, third day, first month, second month, third month, couple of months as well for that matter, and you'll fall. And the important part is just continue praying and giving yourself and just continue walking in that journey. The devil will always tell you that you are not worthy, but you must continue walking. Just continue going. If you fall, it's okay. You wake up, start again. Get up and start again. Don't give up. Don't say that. I think the devil just fills us with so many lies. The devil says that, oh, okay, you're probably the anomaly. it's okay for you to watch because that's just who you're going to be. Like, there's nothing that you can do. And that's not true. You just keep on walking. And also, it's important to fill your minds with good material as well. So along with prayer, always remember to read, read books of people who've also had similar journeys or truth about relationships to people. Again, something similar to the books that we mentioned here, but of course, like you can always just keep on exploring. Just read. I wouldn't. There's certain ways, of course, of how to adjust your lifestyle. So everybody knows exactly when they get triggered or what times of the day they get triggered. So personally, for me, if I now I'm married, I'm with my wife, so I try to protect myself. I keep my phones away from me after a particular time, and if my wife is not around at home, then I usually try to be outside and appreciate the beauties of the world outside. And I think you just have to create a schedule or just protect yourself. It's not usually people start off this way, they try to the schedule and stuff like that. Don't start there. You have to start with prayer. You have to start with surrendering. You have to start with shutting off your lawyer person in your head. These are just tactics, but you need to have, I would say, like a strategy, and yeah, prayer is the best. And regularly go for confession. Share your journey with someone who's very close with you, be it a priest or a friend or a mentor. It's important to share. I cannot stress that enough. It's important to share. And start journaling. For those who have not tried it, wow, it really does wonders. Yeah, and just keep on moving. Don't stop. Even if you fall, don't stop. You will fall. There is no doubt about that. And just remember that the Lord loves us so much. And the more you share your stories, you'll see that love in others, and you'll realize how great God is. And if you don't see it, then also know that the Lord has already died for us.
So, in a sense, I think what you've shared so far would be that, number one, in order to try to really quit pornography, we need to recognize that it is a problem. And secondly, always to make sure that we need to rely on God's grace and really surrender ourselves to Him. And then the importance of spiritual direction, the importance of the sacraments, confession, regular reception of the Eucharist, and also the need for accountability in terms of other people whom you can share with, and even in form of support groups, like you mentioned just now, SA, Sexaholics Anonymous. And I think it seems that if did I summarize it correctly? What you had?
You said it best. Yeah, you perfectly summarized it.
Yeah. So I think you really shared a very beautiful part of that journey, because it is something that I'm sure many listeners would really want and need to hear. Many of us do really need to hear such a good news, so to speak, that, we are not alone, and that God's grace is always there if only we would tap on it, and that He's always there for us. And even if we fall, He's there to carry us, but we just need to let Him carry us and not try to struggle alone, because on ourselves, we just can't do it, right?
Yes, exactly. Don't fight alone.
Great. And in a sense, what advice would you give to parents to help their children avoid pornography? This podcast is for parents, and I'm sure they would be very keen to see what they can do to help their children avoid getting into pornography. Would you like to perhaps share some advice for parents?
I think for parents as well, they should, they should have very clear views on pornography. Either they should see it as a problem, there's certain parents who simply do not want to expose their children to pornography at a certain age, but then they're okay with it after a particular age. I would say, no, you need to have very strong opinions on pornography as parents. Start off with looking at yourself, discuss if you have not discussed it with your spouse, please do it. Discover about your opinions on pornography, and just have your opinions and try to discover that. Focus on yourselves first as a couple, as parents, and then with regard to your child, and this is quite difficult because I never had this opportunity with my own parents, but you need to create an environment where you can where your child can come and approach you, both parents, on this topic of sexuality, pornography, and it's not easy. Every dialogue pertaining to sexuality and pornography, and all these other ideologies that are spurring right these days, gender mainstreaming and this sort of stuff, it should essentially start at home. You should create an environment whereby, if the child is learning about stuff outside the home, which is the primary educational institution, then how do you facilitate an environment where the child comes and tells you, okay, this is what I've learned in school, and then the parents can then share their opinions, or not in school, or maybe from my friends or from my friend's family and so on and so forth. There has to be some kind of system inside the house, be it some kind of habits or tied to culture. A family culture probably needs to be established there. I think that is going to be very crucial to ensure that your child is on the right track and has a view on pornography, point of view on pornography. This is what I think.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, if you may allow me to summarize what they've just said, which is so really rich, right? It is basically for parents to be convinced and that pornography is wrong, period, right? No ifs, no buts, and no compromises on it, right? Also to that parents be in a sense have a good relationship with each other, build on their marriage, and also build on the bonding with their children through affirmation, being there for them and communicating with them well, and being just be available for them to turn to should they have any questions and things like that they bring up, and so that they can actually have a meaningful dialogue, and that will be in a sense a very good support for them, right?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, maybe one more question, if you don't mind me asking, is what if parents find out that their children are already into pornography, all right? Whether they chanced upon what their children viewed, or maybe somebody told them about it, the siblings or so on. What would you like to tell and share with these parents?
Wow, that's a good one. I think having a dialogue with the child is going to be very important if they find out. I would also say, if you're not too sure about it, do not Google, because often times you may not find the right information on Google. You may want to check in with someone who you can really trust, or be it a priest or a friend or another couple or an elderly couple that can share some wisdom on how to approach this. It's also, I also do understand it will not be very comfortable for the parents, but also keep in mind it will not be very comfortable for the child as well to be talking to their parents, especially when there has been no background conversations on sexuality to begin with. So all of a sudden you approach this topic to your child, and it may turn out to be more of a punishment rather than actually educating the child on on the beauty of sexuality and the vices of pornography. So I think dialogue, we need to start from there, but then again, it's more rich than that. You really need to reflect on it and pray about it. Unfortunately, I can't share more because I've not been put into that situation, but I can sense that it has something to do with having a nice dialogue with your child.
There's any other kind of like before we end, any other last words of advice or that you'd like to share with parents who are listening to this podcast?
As parents, I would say that, especially in this day and age, that you will come across a lot of different parents who will have different views on pornography, and considering the sexual age and propaganda and climate that we're all going through these days, I would say that we'll come across more parents who are more liberal. And I don't think this is about being conservative or liberal. It's just about protecting your child and making sure you're creating a family which is built on firm values of human life. And it's not just about, it's not just restricted to Catholicism. I have a lot of actually non-Catholic friends, non-Christian friends. I've actually encouraged them to read Love and Responsibility, because I feel Karol Wojtyła does a very good job of actually keeping religion away when he talks about certain facts about our relationship to human beings. And I would highly encourage families to not be swayed into what the world is saying and what are the habits and cultures or mindsets of different families or different couples, but just look within their hearts and look within the text and books and wisdom of people who have passed on, and of course, with the grace of the Holy Spirit, you will know what to do.
Yeah. Right. Thank you so much, Augustine, for sharing your life, really, your struggles and your faith and your strength with us. I think your faith really played a very big part in your journey. And it is something which has been such a wonderful blessing to have, and really it's been a very great blessing for us to have you on this podcast. And I'm sure many Catholic parents have benefited from your sharing, Yeah.
I mean, all praise and glory to God. I'm just an instrument, but I'm really glad that you also allowed me to be here. This is my first time in any such settings, and I think it was just an honor to be here. Glorify God.
Thank you so much, Augustine. So, dear friends, we just heard from Augustine, who shared with us his journey from pornography addiction to freedom in Christ. He also shared with us how the theology of the body, love and responsibility, was so instrumental in his conversion. And since we're on the topic of the works of St. John Paul II, namely the Theology of the Body, or TOB, I would like to share with you that at the next interview, we'll be talking with Mr. Andrew Kong, a very well-known and passionate speaker on the TOB, who will share with us why this teaching is such a beautiful one of Pope St. John Paul II, and the one that can not only transform us, but really also help us and our children find true happiness and meaning in our lives. So, till we meet again, take care, and may God bless you and your family always. Goodbye.